Hey everybody, and thanks for joining me in the garage again today. Today's mower is a Craftsman 22-inch, 4.5 horsepower Briggs and Stratton engine. Uh, I have no background on this mower. I actually picked it up in a batch of about 8 mowers from a guy who does something similar to what I do, kind of picks up cheap mowers and fixes them up. So I'm not overly optimistic about this one or the other 5, but I got them for really cheap, and if nothing else, I'm sure I could get a whole bunch of parts off of this guy for other mowers. So at first glance, uh, not looking too good here. I got all sorts of oil um, on the deck. Oil all on the side of the mower. Could be head gasket, could be a seal, an upper seal, crankshaft seal. So that's first thing. Spark plug, obviously it's been sitting outside, so spark plug doesn't look great. Let's see what we got on this side. Again, some more oil on the deck. Fuel wise, yeah, there is some fuel in there. I'm sure it's not good, especially if it's been sitting outside. Probably all sorts of water in the fuel tank. Primer looks okay. Yeah, oh, there's no brake band cable attached to this guy. So no cable. Cable should be running down here and into this side. So we're gonna have to figure out something there. Obviously, before I can even pull it over, I'm gonna have to probably put some vice grips or a tie or something on the inside of here to clamp the cable open, or the brake, to remove the brake. All right, so that's where we're gonna get started. Let's see what we got for oil. Sometimes I guess if there's oil all over the place, they might overfill the oil in these things. Oh yeah, look at the amount of oil that's in this thing. Let's see, I'm gonna wipe this off and show you where it should be. Anyways, the oil is filled up to here, and it should be only up to here. So it should be filled to here, and it's actually filled all the way to here. So hopefully that's the reason for all the oil all over the deck and the mower. Maybe they just overfilled it. So before I get going, it's probably going to be hard to pull over with that much oil in it. It might be hydrolocked. Before I get going, I'm probably going to take the spark plug out. First of all, I'll probably empty a little bit of that oil out to the proper amount. Then I'll take the spark plug out, and then I'll pull it through and see if it's hydrolocked. And if it is, well, that'll clean out all that oil out of the combustion chamber. So that's where we're going to get started, guys. Again, thanks for joining me today. So let's drain some of this oil out of here. what we got in there now. Alright, so still a little bit overfilled, but we'll give it a start. See what's going on here. Once I get this squared away. Alright, let me show you guys what I'm looking at here. So ultimately what I need to do is get this arm right here is attached to a brake. So what I need to do is kind of cinch that over as far as I can, and best way to go about doing that really is to put a zip tie around this arm and this guy right here. So I'll get that done, and we'll see you back here in a second. So just to show you what I got going on here, guys, I got a zip tie right around that guy. So that's your the brake on the inside here now is actually going to be off. The only problem is without the ability to release that, which I don't want to cut it every single time. The only way I'm going to be able to stop the mower, if it actually does get started, is by pulling off the spark plug boot, and that'll kill the ignition. So let's give her a couple pulls, see what's going on. We'll know if it's hydrolocked pretty quick because it'll be hard to pull over. And if that's the case, then I'll pull out that spark plug and pull it over a bunch of times to try and get any oil out of that cylinder. Not sure it's getting any fuel or not. Oh yeah, she's hard. I don't know if it's hydrolocked or if there's a broken flywheel key because they hit something, but she's not turning over at all. So first thing I'm going to do is get rid of this, remove this spark plug and see if it turns over a little easier. Holy smokes, guys, look at this. I don't know if you guys can see that. That is nasty. That is just way too much oil. And that thing is just gummed right up. So that's nowhere near, that'll never fire. All right. So let's see if it's easier to pull over now. Yeah, I think I can see some. Oh, you can see the oil just pouring out of there, out of that cylinder. Okay. So this thing's definitely hydrolocked. I'm gonna have to try and get all this oil, excess oil out of the cylinder here. Just by pulling it over a bunch of times. Okay, well, hopefully that got rid of the majority of the oil that was living in that cylinder. What I'm going to do is get a good spark plug. We'll throw it in there, see what we get, see if we get any fire at all. That's why it's important, guys. Never overfill. It even says right on the dipstick, never overfill the oil. I know some people are, I mean, obviously the opposite is just as bad, if not worse, actually, because it will kill your engine if you don't have enough oil. But guys, don't overfill it and think you're doing something. It's better to have more than, it's better to have just the right amount. So let's see if this thing will go. I don't know how the fuel situation is here, and the carburetor might be all gummed up, but alright, so definitely not going. So we'll have to see if we're dealing with a fuel issue, a spark issue, or both for that matter. First thing I'm gonna do is gonna put a little bit of fuel straight into the carburetor in case it's not getting any fuel. So on these guys, you can just take this air filter off the top here. This is just complete lack of maintenance. This is just absolutely gross. All right, well, we're also missing a spring here. So even if this does go, I don't think it's gonna run right. So we're missing a governor spring. Should be attached to here, so we'll see what we get. Alright, well, that is good. Got a little bit of a fire there. So this one might be a survivor. Didn't really run that great, but I mean, that's to be expected considering everything that's going on here. So what we're going to do next is probably going to clean up the carb, see if I can find a new spring for this guy, and we'll go from there. Alright guys, so what I'm going to do next is take off this carburetor. Missing a bolt here. So it's only being held on by this bolt right there, which looks like it's a 1/2 inch. Twist the whole tank. There's a Z bend on the throttle. And there she comes. Alright, I'm going to move this over to my bench here and we'll start cleaning this out. Alright, first things first, we're going to get rid of all the gas that's in this tank. I'll bet you pretty much it's all water. We'll take a look at that. Oh, that's nice. Alright, so let me show you what came out of this. So there's debris, there's water, there's fuel, there's oil, a little bit of everything in this tank. Let's hope we can even save the tank. Now the inside doesn't look like it's all rusty or anything, so it doesn't look to be too bad. Still lots of water, and you can't drain quite everything out this way yet. Next thing I'm going to do is pull off the carburetor. There's 5 aggressive 5 Phillips screws. Well, some you can't even see because they're so caked over with oil. And then the carburetor's going to come off. Underneath here is a diaphragm. A lot of times these diaphragms end up getting hard and brittle. I'll probably replace this guy anyways. And it's actually fairly supple. Maybe because of all the oil. So we'll see. Might get away with maybe reusing that guy. Little flaps on there. These little flaps control the inlet outlet of the fuel. So, and then the bottom of this float bowl right here is just a nice mixture of again, a mixture of oil, water, all sorts of nice goodies in there. Oh, there's a nice leaf. Alright, just nastiness. And the good thing about all this oil residue is it doesn't let anything rust. Obviously doesn't allow things to run either, so it's not something ever I would recommend, of course. Ugh. But these fuel setups on these Pulsar Prime, is kind of what they're called, carburetors, are super easy, super basic, so there's not much that could go wrong. Usually if you got a problem, if the thing starts and dies, or if it won't start in the springtime, a lot of times just replacing this gasket and diaphragm here will actually get your machine up and running again. All the nastiness out of there. So what I'm going to do here is rinse this guy out with some fuel, and I'm going to spray a bunch of carb cleaner. Obviously I'm going to do this again after I rinse it all out. I'm going to put some fuel in here, a little bit of fresh fuel. We'll rinse it all out and then I'll let it dry up. And hopefully it'll be good to go, and then I'll work on the actual carburetor. So I cleaned up this carburetor. I did it off camera. It only took about 3 minutes, 4 minutes. Sprayed it all down with some carb cleaner, get all that gunk off of there, and then all I did was on the bottom side here, sprayed some carb cleaner in through the main jet, and into this tube, which actually is your pickup tube. So this sits in the tank, picks up fuel, and comes in here, fills up the bowl, and it sucks it up from the bowl through this main emulsion tube right here. So on top of this emulsion tube, you got a screen, which I also sprayed with some carb cleaner, and just want to make sure you get that nice and clean. Put that guy back on. Now there's a little spring on here, guys. You want to make sure you don't lose this. Put that spring back on, and that's for your diaphragm part, the pump part. Of the carburetor, and you can see there's an indentation. Maybe you can see it. There's an indentation right in this area, so you can tell when you go to put it back together which way it goes back on. So we're going to try it with this first, and if it doesn't work with this diaphragm and gasket, we can always put a new one on. So that, and it's nothing to take it apart. So this tank is all nice and clean now, especially this area right here where this is going to, the carb is going to sit on. So this is going to go, your pickup tube goes into the tank, and then you're going to line it all up. And then you're going to put in your 5 screws, and it should be put back together. Alright, now I'm going to use my cordless driver. I'm going to set the clutch down to a lower number so I don't over torque them. And I'm just doing them in a crisscross pattern. So those are all tight. I'll just come back usually with a screwdriver just to double check that they're all nice and tight. Just maybe another 1/8 of a turn. Alright, that's good. Now she's ready to go back on the mower. So before I put this nice clean carb back on this dirty mower, I'm probably just going to clean this up a little bit in the vicinity of the carburetor. Get all the leaves and gunk out. I probably will also blow this off with the air compressor. All sorts of little goodies on this thing. Let's see if I can find a bolt on here. I think it's actually a 3/8 bolt, which I should have some in my stash here. Alright, so that's all cleaned up. Still gotta find a spring for this as well. You put your Z-bend back on first. Put that guy on. Put your bolt back in. Guy down. Alright, next thing I'm going to do is try and find a spring for this guy first. Alright, so I was able to find a spring. Goes here from the throttle. Just puts tension on there on the governor. So I found that guy, and what I'm going to do now is I took the cover off here, kind of take a look at what's going on, and it's all covered in grass and oil and stuff. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and blow all this off, and I'll come back when it's all cleaned up. I'm just going to put this on here just to keep out all the gunk out of my nice clean carburetor. So I'll be back. Alright, so since I got this cover off here, I might as well go ahead and check the flywheel key. Just to make sure nobody's hit anything. And the flywheel key looks just fine, so that's good news. So I'll just spin this guy back on. I always like to do that if I take the cover off, which I always usually do anyways. Just to lubricate the recoil, the pull cord recoil. So everything in here looks good. So what I'm going to do now then is go ahead and lubricate this recoil. So these dogs or paws here, basically just spray some lubricant in there. Where those paws are, just for longevity's sake, and usually try and get some in where the spring is as well, in the starter recoil, because those starter recoils, if they're not attended to, then they get all rusty, the spring ends up breaking, and then you gotta get a new recoil or a new spring. Alright, it's time for this guy to go back on. Alright, so I'll go zip those guys back in. Shoot 3 of these 3/8 bolts, one up front. And then one on the side here, and then one on the other opposing side as well. Alright, so that guy's back together. Alright, so next step. Oh, I was looking for a bolt for that guy, and I did have one in my hoard, but I can't remember where I put it now. Alright, well, get out my old Briggs and Stratton bolts here. See if I can't find them. That looks like that'll do. Well, it's not actually a 3/8 bolt, but let's see if I can find the 3/8. There we go. So she's nice and secure now. I'm going to leave this off for now. As you can see, I'm going to need a new air filter in this guy, so it'll be fine as long as I don't run into too much dust or grass or anything. So I'm going to put this guy down, put some fresh fuel in there, and see if we can't get this thing fired up. Okay, well here she goes. I primed it a couple times. Let's see what happens.